Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi amma ba'd. Now we're going to study the actual matan, Nukhbatul-Fikr. It's an older copy I've had for some years when I was studying the book when I first got to Yemen. Another thing that we didn't mention in our introduction was that when we study this book, Nukhbatul-Fikr, you're going to find a lot of issues that clearly prove how the different sciences are intertwined, and how there were many things, foreign alien elements that came into the science of hadith, such as al-usul or usul al-fiqh. Alright, things that were not from the original natural al-hadith or al-Mustalah or al-Mustalah. Even though there are some, as we said before, general meeting places, general concepts that are intertwined and interlocked. But there are some concepts that are foreign, and they crept in on the sciences of hadith because of the different political things that were taking place during the times in which those books were written. Okay, let alone the concept of the aqidah and the widespread aqidah during that time in that country, in Egypt, and in the places outside of Egypt. All right, all of these factors have a great effect upon the people who wrote books during the 7th century, the 6th century, the 8th century, the 9th century, the politics, all right, the government that was in power at that time, philosophy, kalam, all of these things, they played a deal. And we don't want to go too deep into that, but it's something that is on the next level of our study in al-Mustalah. So anyway, the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, he says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi alladhi lam yazal aliman qadiran, وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد الذي أرسله إلى الناس بشيرا ونذيرا وعلى آل محمد وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد فإن التصانيف في اصطلاح أهل الحديث قد كثرت وبسطت واختصرت فسألني بعض الإخوان أن ألخص له المهم من ذلك فأجبته إلى سؤاله رجاء الاندراج في تلك المسالك فأقول. The author begins his book by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who is Alim and Qadir, all of the time. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, he always was, he always will be. The all-knowing, the omnipotent, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he extols, or he sends prayers upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our leader, the one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to all of the people as a bearer of glad tidings and as a warner, and upon the family members, followers, and companions of Muhammad alayhi wasallam in abundance. To proceed. He says, فَإِنَّ التَّصَانِيفِ, he says the books and the authored works, فِي اصطلاح أهل الحديث, and the terminology and the jargon, the lingo of the people of hadith, he says here, قَدْ كَثُرَتْ, they are abundant. Many books have been written. وَبُسِطَتْ وَاخْتَصِرَتْ, some are short and some are long, or long and short. Now this goes back to what we explained in our other classes on Taysir Mustalah al-Hadith, on the science of hadith or Mustalah hadith made easy. We gave you a brief introduction on the different background and the chronological order of the books of Mustalah being put together. So this is what Ibn Hajar is talking about. And it's the wisdom behind us doing that class first and doing this class and doing them together simultaneously. Alright, and very important to understand the history. He says, فَسَأَلَنِي بَعْضُ الْإِخْوَانِ أَنْ أُلَخِّصَ لَهُ الْمُهِمَّ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. He says, so some of my brothers, they asked me to give them a beneficial summary, that which is needed from all of that long jargon, those long arguments and those extensive books and works. Just give me a tight summary, alright? And we know that the one who asked him about that was his student, Az-Zarkashi, rahimahullah. He then says, فَأَجَبْتُهُ إِلَى سُؤَالِهِ. He says, so I responded to him, and I fulfilled his request. رَجَالِ اندراج في تلك المسالك. He says, out of hope that I will be among those great ulama, in hopes that I would tread their path. Allahu Akbar, I will walk in their footsteps. And we've explained this before, the concept of a student of hadith having aspirations, wanting more, wanting to be like the ulama, wanting to be like the ulama of the past, the muhaddithin, the scholars of hadith. Alright, and we've explained this several times. He then says, فَأَقُولُ الْخَبَرُ إِمَّا أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُ طُرُقٌ بِالْعَدَدْ مُعَيَّنٍ أو ما حصر بما فوق الاثنين أو بهما أو بواحد. The author says, getting into the actual book, he says al-khabar. We have a word here called al-khabar. Okay, he says إما أن يكون له طرق بلا عدد معين أو ما حصر بما فوق الاثنين أو بما أو بواحد. He says this word al-khabar is going to have one of three different scenarios when it comes to its isnad, its chain of narration. We've explained what a metan is and what an isnad is. Once again, we're moving on to the next level. So we're not going to go back to our ABCs when we're working on phonics and phonetics now. So therefore, a khabar has an isnad with one of three different scenarios. He says here, إما أن يكون له طرق بلا عدد معين. He says what? بلا عدد معين. He says أو مع حصر بما فوق الاثنين. اثنين فأكثر. He says أو بهما أو بواحد. He says here either it's going to have unlimited amount of turuq. He says أو ما حصر بما فوق الاثنين, at least two or more. He says أو بهما, or at least two فقط. Or he says أو بواحد. We'll make a fourth one. واحد فقط. For example, we're going to break this down better inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We just want to get started. Before we move on, al-khabar, he says, and what he means by the word khabar is a riwayah. Regardless whether that riwayah is marfu' or marfu'ah, but we're going to say marfu' because that's the term that we taught, mawquf, or maqtu'. Regardless of who's saying the report, whether it's the Prophet ﷺ, one of the Sahaba, one of the Tabi'een, it is called, to Ibn Hajar right here, it's called al-khabar. Al-khabar. And a synonym for this word khabar is al-hadith. Or you could say al-athar. Okay? Now some of the ulama say that this word is synonymous to a hadith, and others say that it isn't. And some of them say that the khabar is more general than the term hadith. That a khabar could be a statement, action, or a solid approval of the Prophet ﷺ, and a khabar, a khabar could be a hadith or it could be a statement of someone else. But a hadith is only for the Prophet ﷺ. And similarly, they say about the word athar. We don't want to get too deep in that because when you look into the books of the ulama of the past, they use all of the terms. They use all of the terms synonymously. They use the word khabar to mean hadith, they mean hadith to mean khabar, and they mean athar to mean hadith. And sometimes the word athar is also mentioned about one of the tabi'een. Now, when we took in the Baiquniya class that a statement, action, or silent approval of the Prophet is called marfu'a. وَمَا لِتَابِعٍ هُوَ الْمَقْطُوعُ. He says in that which belongs to a tabi is called maqtu'. Mawqufun, he says zukin. Alright? قول الأصحاب من قول وفعل for موقوف زكٍ. He says that what the Sahaba do or say is called mawquf. Now when you read the actual books of the people of the past, you actually pick up some of their books and you really get into them. An example of this, okay, just a quick example, is the Musannaf of Abdul Razak. Famous book on the statements and actions of the companions and the tabi'in. And in contradiction to common belief, it also has a hadith in it, a ton of a hadith. So it's a book of marfu' and mawquf and maqtu' narrations. We very seldom find the people of the past calling the statement action of a tabi'i to be maqtu'. Rather, in most cases, they only use one of the two, marfu' and mawquf. That's it. But we don't go too deep down that tunnel. What's important here is that now he's breaking down how a khabar reaches us. How do we get a piece of information, a statement, an action, a silent approval? Where does it come from? It has to come via an isnad, a chain, a tariq. So therefore he used the word tariq to mean isnad. So he says al-khabar إما أن يكون له طرق بلا عدد معين. The first variation is a khabar that has so many different turuq, so many different isnads. He says it's countless, even though there are a number to them, but as if it is. Secondly, he says مع حصر بما فوق الاثنين. He says the thing has what? 3 or more narrations. مثلا, let's fix this. ثلاثة فأكثر. بما فوق الاثنين. Could be 4, could be 5, could be 6, but it doesn't reach the level of the first category. He then says, oh, bihima, two narrations, all right, 2 narrators in his chain, oh, biwahid, or with 1. So before we go any further, this is the basic breakdown according to the author, as we said once again, according to the author, of a khabar and how the khabar reaches us. Clear, inshallah. Ibn Hajar, he then says, فَالْأَوَّلُ الْمُتَوَاتِرُ الْمُفِيدُ لِلْعِلْمِ الْيَقِينِ بِشُرُوطِهِ. The first scenario is called, according to Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala, al-mutawatir. Al-mutawatir. Alright? Or in English, you say, mutawatir. That's the first scenario. And he says, describing this mutawatir narration, he says what? Al-mufidu lil-ilm al-yaqini bi-shurutihi. Okay, we've categorized them. Now, what do we get from them? What is the benefit that you take from a mutawatir narration according to the author? He says, Al-mufid lil-ilm al-yaqini بِشُرُوطِهِ. When the conditions are met for this first category, he says that this gives you ilm yaqini. It is certain knowledge, conclusive knowledge. It says it's irrefutable. It's no way you can reject this. Once this type of khabar reaches you. When this type of khabar reaches you. He then says, وَالثَّانِي الْمَشْهُورُ وَهُوَ الْمُسْتَفِيضُ عَلَى رَأْيٍ. He says the second one, in which there is what? بِمَا فَوْقَ الْإِثْنَيْن. He says 3 or more. That narration is called al-mashhur. Say what in English? Mashhur. So far if I asked you, what are the new terminologies that we took that we didn't mention in the Bayquniya class? Mutawatir. Imam al-Bayquni, rahimahullah, he didn't mention that one. But he did mention mashhur. Ibn Hajar then says, وَالثَّالِثُ, and he says another term for this word mashhur is called al-mustafid. Al-mustafid. Alright? Mustafid. He says, وَالثَّالِثُ الْعَزِيزُ وَلَيْسَ شَرْطًا لِلصَّحِيحِ خِلَافًا لِمَنْ زَعَمَهُ. 2 more, or the 2, he says the dual narration is called what? Al-Aziz. Like the person's name that you know. Abdul Aziz. Okay? He says, وَالرَّابِعُ, he says, وَلَيْسَ خِلَافًا. Now, before we move any further, before we break down these terms, alright, and we don't want to go too high up, because this could be explained in a whole set of lectures, just one page right here. We want to make sure that we understand everything properly. He said that a khabar, when it comes to us, it comes to us through one of these different ways, one of these different channels. Once again, repeating the kalam, he says, Al-khabaru imma an yakuna lahu turuqun bila adadin muayyan. Countless number of isnads. He says here, أو مع حصر بما فوق الاثنين. Or we have a certain amount of them. It's mahsur. We've enumerated the isnads. But he says what? بما فوق الاثنين. With 3 or more. 4, 5, or whatever the case may be. He says, oh, bihima. 2, oh, biwahid, or 1. Everybody clear on that? So let's erase that, inshallah. So we have more space on the board to write down what we want to write down. The author, Allah have mercy upon him, Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, he then says, فَالْأَوَّلُ, he says the first of these types of khabars is called al-mutawatir. We said what? He said, al-mutawatir. Al-mutawatir, okay? Board is still a little wet. Alright? He says what? Al-mutawatir. That's the first type. That's the first type of hadith. He says here that this term al-mutawatir, in describing it, what type of khabar is it? He says, al-mufidu lil-ilm al-yaqini bi-shurutihi. He switched up on you now. He started off by talking about how the hadith comes to you, or the athar, or the khabar comes to you. And now he gives you, and this is according to his opinion and his view, he says, al-mufidu lil-ilm al-yaqini. Now it is the thamara, the fruit of this khabar. It gives you something that is definite, okay, conclusive, alright? Resolute ilm. He says, al-mutawatir, we said in English, mutawatir. What is the fruit of it? What's the thamara? A thamara is that it gives you what? He says, al-mufid lil-ilm al-yaqini. It gives you yaqeen. But not any type of khabar that's mutawatir, but it has to be something that fulfills the what? He says, bi shurutihi. There are conditions for the hadith or the khabar that is called mutawatir. So let's break this down, inshallah. The word mutawatir linguistically means, or it comes from the term tawatara. And the word tawatara means we say what? At-tatabur. It means ish? At-tatabur. For one thing to follow something else concurrently, in succession, one after another, back to back, piece by piece, like this and like that. Okay, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran al-Kareem, Surah al-Mu'minun, ثُمَّ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا تَتْرَى. He says, we then sent our rusul, our messengers, tetra. Yani, wahidan ba'da wahid. One after another, consecutively, like this and like that. So that's what the word mutawatir linguistically means. Alright? As for its technical definition, and some of the ulama, they say that a mutawatir hadith is ما رواه جمع كثير في كل طبقة من طبقات السند. He says here, يستحيل في العادة تواترهم على الكذب وأسندوه إلى شيء محسوس. This is the definition of mutawatir according to many of the ulama. They say it is a narration ما رواه جمع كثير, by an abundant number of people. Abundant number of people. They don't necessarily specify how many people it has to be. And there's long difference of opinion on how many number of people are included in this word jama' kathir. Some say it has to be at least 10. Some say it has to be 12. Okay? Some say it has to be what? 40. Some say 70. Alright? Some say 100. Some say 300. And there are other statements, other views. There is no specific text from the Kitab and Sunnah stating how many people it has to be. Rather, there isn't anything that is clearly tangible and rational and reasonable to say what is and what isn't mutawatir. And the differences of opinions on how many people is considered or are considered in this jama' kathir, some of the ulama say it proves da'f hadha qawl. It proves that this statement is weak. And this specific condition is weak. Alright? Because it's muttarib. It's all over the place. They can't agree on what is mutawatir and what isn't mutawatir. There's no doubt. There's common sense to the narrations which are famous, whether they're religious narrations or not. For example, there's no one who's going to deny that there's a country that's called Japan. Whether you've been there or not, everyone with common sense knows that there is a set of 4 islands, 4 main islands called Japan. And it's a country called Japan. There's a city in that country called Tokyo. How many people have reported? So many people have told you about that. So many people have been there and seen it, and so on and so forth. There's no doubt about that. But what is the number of people that have told you about Japan or been in Japan? Was it 40 people? 100 people? 70 people? 300 people? That's tahakkum. You can't just say what isn't without any type of dalil. So therefore, that's the first condition of mutawatir, is that it must be a large number of people. في كل طبقة من طبقات السند. The next step is that in each level of the chain, there's the same number of people. In other words, let's start off with the Prophet ﷺ's hadith. Who are the people that narrate directly from the Rasul ﷺ? We say the Sahaba. So that's one level. And this level is called what? We say the level is called what? At-Tabaqa. At-Tabaqa, which is a level, a slab. Alright? And then the next Tabaqa, who? At-Tabi'un. Alright? And then narrate from them are the Atba' At-Tabi'in. And then their next Tabaqa, those who come after them. And until the narration reaches a book. Until we say it is collected by Imam Abdul Razak. Or collected, for example, we may say, Malik fil Muwatta. Alright, Imam Malik, rahimahullah. So therefore, the author, and these authors, they say that in every tabaqa, every level of the isnad, there has to be jam'un kathir or jam'un kabir. In other words, no matter what number they agree or disagree on, it must be found in every level of the chain. So, for example, let's take 12, alright? He says that it has to be at least, how many companions? At least 12 companions. And at least 12 tabi'een. And at least 12 atba' tabi'een until it reaches the Muwatta of Malik. As for if one of the chains, or one of the tabaqas, has 11, one has 9, then according to this definition, and those who make this specific number, it's not mutawatir. But it has to be jam' kathir, an abundant amount of people in every single tabaqa. And if that level is not reached consistently until the hadith or until the khabar reaches a book, then they say it's not mutawatir and is one of those other 3 categories that the author began to speak about. Clear, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the first part of the explanation of the definition of al-mutawatir. He then says, يَسْتَحِيلُ فِي الْعَادَةِ تَوَاتُرُهُمْ عَلَى الْكَذِبِ. He says in most cases, it is going to be impossible for these type of people, or for these number of men or women, these narrators, to come together upon a lie. For them to conjure and to make this up. Alright? For them to just, corroborate upon this huge lie. This is what Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala and others say in explanation of the definition of al-mutawatir. So once again, we said that the mutawatir hadith, or the mutawatir khabar, is ma rawahu jam'un kathir fi kulli tabaqatin min tabaqat as-sanad. Every single level of the chain, there is a large, abundant, swollen number of people. And that large, abundant, swollen number of people, he says that in most cases it's impossible for them to come together and lie. Because there's so many of them all put together. It's just impossible for them to all come and lie upon something. It's impossible for these people to just make up a lie and say that their country is called Japan and there's no such thing as Japan. There are no islands called Japan. It's China, Korea, and that's it. That there's nothing past those countries. La. Okay? So that is the next explanation. Is that it says yastahilu fil aada. Now, that part of the explanation is very problematic. Because the first tabaqa of the Sanad, who are they? It says a Sahaba. 12 companions or more. Do the companions lie? Would the companions lie? Do we need 12 or 24 or 100 companions to prove that none of them lied? There's no doubt that's incorrect. And that's very ugly. Those ulama who mention that's something that needs to be fixed. And that's something that needs to be pointed out when you give that definition. It's impossible for the companions to come together to lie. The companions would never lie upon the Prophet as individuals. let alone together collectively. So that's a problem. Moving on. He says, يستحيل في العادة تواطؤهم على الكذب وأسندوه إلى شيء محسوس. Then they have to make the report to something which is called mahsus. It has to be tangible or palpable. Something that's mahsus. He said either such as what? As-sam', hearing. Or al-basar, sight. Smelling, touching. Al-muhim, they have to report something that they actually saw or tasted or felt. Not something that they thought about. Alright, something that they feel. It has to be something that is tangible with one of the 5 senses. Clear, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a basic explanation and definition. Or not the definition, because we gave the definition, but that's the explanation of the mutawatir khabar. Of the khabar that is considered to be mutawatir. So we'll stop here. Bismillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My advice is to make review of the matan. Thoroughly review it, inshallah. Look over it. And if anything that's troublesome or burdensome, don't quit, don't give up, don't get frustrated, but continue to study. Because we took the beginner's level, now we're moving on. If you have any questions, please forward them and we'll try to answer them. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.